The
living in
NSW
Jamaica.
President Donald Trump's
solid waste reduction.
Marcus Sefferly. Good day, I'm Shane Masters, and welcome to News Rewind, JNN's look at the top stories of the week that was. Local and regional disaster preparedness experts are using Tuesday's earthquake in the Caribbean as an urgent reminder for Jamaicans to be prepared for natural disasters. More from Jenny Williams.
Both heads of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, and the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SEDEMA, are urging locals to pay more attention and take preparedness more seriously. The quake, which hit Venezuela around 4:31 p.m. Jamaica time, had a magnitude of 7.3 and spread ripples which caused property damage in Trinidad. Director General of ODPEM, Major Clive Davis, says the quake is a timely reminder which should not be ignored. He argues that Jamaica's location makes earthquakes a possibility at any time.
Jamaica experiences an average of 200 earthquakes annually. Our last one was just about last week. Most of them are small, but we must remember that we live in a very seismically active region, and so we can have quakes at any time. The Eastern Caribbean has been pretty active over the last 2 years. The fact that we have not had a big one since 1992 does not mean that we are over the hump. Jamaica sits in a seismically active region, and earthquakes will occur, and so we must continue to be on our guard.
In the meantime, Executive Director of SEDEMA, Ronald Jackson, is also warning about the dangers of non-preparation.
This isn't about hurricanes. We're in what we call a multi-hazard environment, and that we have to be vigilant for all types of hazards. The images you saw out of Trinidad reminds us that we have to build according to the standards that we have, and that we must take every precaution to really learn about the steps we can take to protect ourselves.
Seismologist at the University of the West Indies' Seismic Research Center, SRC, in Trinidad, Dr. Joan Latchman, has cautioned residents of the region that aftershocks from Tuesday's strong quake in eastern Venezuela can be expected for days to come. She says another earthquake is also possible. In Trinidad, several buildings were damaged, as well as cracks in floors and roads, after the earthquake that the SRC measured a magnitude of 6.8, but the United States Geological Survey upgraded to 7.3, hit eastern Venezuela. The tremor, which occurred around 4:31 p.m. Jamaica time, was felt in other Caribbean countries, including Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Grenada, Barbados, as well as St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Opposition spokesman on science and technology Julian Robinson says the board of the Universal Service Fund USF should not be allowed to escape blame for governance issues at the entity. More from Kimberly Broderick.
His comment follows announcement of the resignation of the fund's managing director, Camille Buchanan, over the weekend. Mr. Robinson believes the board is just as culpable as Ms. Buchanan for any irregularities at the USF.
I also think that the issues of accountability cannot rest solely with Ms. Buchanan. The board of the company was fully aware of many of the critical decisions, the expenditures that were being undertaken, and accountability has to go to the level of the board, and in particular the chairman, who has been operating like an executive chairman.
Ms. Buchanan has been under pressure since the parliamentary opposition raised questions about her leading the entity and the subsequent hiring of her daughter. The opposition claimed that the hiring of Ms. Buchanan was another example of the mismanagement and nepotism existing in what was initially the Ministry of Energy, Science and Technology during the tenure of Dr. Andrew Wheatley. Mr. Robinson says USF Chairman Robert Lawrence has questions to answer regarding the composition of the board.
The chairman of the board needs to indicate why the representatives from the telecoms companies, from Flow and Digicel, who have been on the board of the USF from its inception, why are they no longer on the board? Was it a deliberate attempt to remove them from the board so that the levels of accountability and scrutiny would not be there?
He is reiterating calls for an investigation by the Integrity Commission and the Auditor General into the operations of the Universal Service Fund. The private sector organization of Jamaica, PSOJ, has also called for a probe. The USF, which falls under the Ministry of Technology, gets its funding from a levy on international calls terminating on local networks.
The current occupants of the boyhood home of national hero Marcus Garvey say they will not leave the property until the government holds negotiations with them and an agreement for resettlement can be arrived at. The details from Cody and Barrett.
On Friday, at the 131st anniversary of Garvey's birth, Culture Minister Babsy Grange announced that the government will be taking possession of the property. However, one of the occupants, Colleen Johnson, says Ms. Grange's announcement was premature as there has been no negotiations regarding compensation.
We don't plan to go nowhere. As soon as they come and negotiate with us, we'll go wherever they want us to go. We haven't got no negotiation happened and no consultation. Even though Ms. Babsy was saying it's final for her, it's not final for us. We haven't got no negotiation with nobody.
Ms. Johnson notes that there are 2 houses on the property with 7 occupants. She says during an informal conversation, the family was offered a 3-bedroom house for resettlement. Ms. Johnson says that is unacceptable.
I live in one and my sisters live in one. Suppose me no want to live with my sisters them no more. So me no have no choice. Them no offer nothing for us. I just tell you, no consultation. One day I was sitting under the clock and a man come to me telling me they're looking at house for us. But listen to me, it's a sloppy, untidy situation. You can negotiate. When you have an accident or anything, can you negotiate with people on the street? You take me with my attorney, and you sit me down with my sisters or the other stakeholders, and we sit and we have a talk. You can't have me on the clock and say I negotiate things with me on the clock.
Ms. Grange has said the Commissioner of Lands has been given ministerial direction to take possession of the property. She states that this development clears the way for the establishment of the proposed Living History Museum in honor of the national hero. And the attorney for the occupants of Marcus Garvey's boyhood home, Linton Gordon, says he will be writing to the authorities on Tuesday for clarification of the announcement by Ms. Grange. He explains he will make it clear that the occupants are prepared to accept 2 houses as settlement.
I believe they should get a team of persons capable of understanding and appreciating difficulties that persons without anywhere to live are facing in Jamaica. Meet with the family, identify zones in which they are prepared to be relocated within regions of their social network, and locate 2 homes, purchase them, give them, and move on. And they can set a cap, maybe nothing over 25 or 20 million, and they buy 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom houses, hand them over to them, and we move on.
Mr. Gordon notes that the land has been valued at $3.2 million. However, he argues that would not be enough to purchase a home. He says his clients would be homeless if the authorities go ahead with the acquisition without settling the relocation issue.
There is no letter offering any alternative accommodation. I tried to get Ms. Johnson this afternoon, but without success. But I think if she had gotten an offer, she would have let me know. So I'm prepared to say that there has not been any alternative accommodation offered to the residents up to today. So if they are being removed or evicted, it's likely they will end up on the street, under a bridge, or maybe someone can catch them up for the time being.
In the meantime, research officer at Liberty Hall, Dr. Shani Roper, has explained that the site is significant for teaching the values of Marcus Garvey and sharing his history with tourists.
So when you take a monument, you are actually speaking about the identity of a people. What are the values that you want to celebrate. So, for example, Liberty Hall, which is one of the many kind of Liberty Halls, there are over 1,000 Liberty Halls in the 1920s and 30s. And Liberty Halls were to be the center of cultural and educational engagement. So when you make a Liberty Hall a monument and you give it active purpose, then you are promoting a set of values that you want the people in the nation to acknowledge and also seek to embody.
Vendors at the Constant Spring Market in Manor Park, St. Andrews, staged another protest on Monday morning against the eviction notice for them to leave in just over a month's time. Jenny Williams tells us more.
The Constant Spring Market is owned by the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, and the decision has been taken for the demolition to get underway. An eviction notice to this effect was served last Thursday on behalf of the town clerk, Robert Hill. The vendors have long been saying that proper preparation have not been put in place. Monday morning was no different. In the face of a specific date for their departure, they have become more adamant that something should be done. Compensate or relocate them.
And we don't have nowhere to go, then don't locate we nowhere. And we need justice right here, sir, in Constant Spring Market, because we're not moving from here until they locate we somewhere or leave the market alone.
This male vendor who sells hassocks questions, what will the people be left to do?
I have my 3 kids them for feed. You understand? When you come now and you push away, what you do? When you push away out of the market, what you do for poor people? You not do nothing at all for we. Prime Minister, government, minister, we don't even see you now. When you come now with that, true we telling us that we're not getting a written notice. When you come with something now I say a written notice and we will come up by December the 31st. Oh, that go when we there say September the 31st. Oh, it go. When we there say pay for years by years by years by years by years. What we get? With the relocation of the people. Everywhere me look on my TV, me see poor people about here, there, and everywhere.
It was even suggested that, like other places which have given up some space, the market could be made smaller. But would the vendors agree?
Yes, sir, if that's they can do that, but we don't want the market to move because we don't have nowhere else to go.
Mark Lowe, who has a phone shop in the market area, says they should be included in the development.
I am not here to stop the project. We don't want to stop. This is bigger than us. Just consider us and put it in the plan. They're going to develop the area for people who have it already. They might throw the people who here who don't have it, and them sell out the place to somebody who have it already. Warm to us.
When all else fails, what about relocating to the Stony Hill market?
Went to Stony Hill market and I look into the market. Don't even talk about Stony Hill market. If you go up there's a disgrace. Go look for yourself. Right? They would have to fix it up.
The date for eviction is on or before September 30, 2018.
And the coffee farmers also on Monday morning staged a protest to demand an increase in the price of coffee. The farmers contend that Wallingford Coffee Company is buying the produce below minimum wage and it is affecting their livelihood. More from Kimberly Broderick.
According to the Jamaica Coffee Growers Association, the Wallingford Coffee Company should let the government buy it if they are not able to afford it. President of the association, Donald Salmon, says the coffee farmers are restive and will not give up until they are given what they deserve.
Well, we are here for the final payment from Wallingford and coffee traders. We need money for the kids to go back to school. We are looking at how the price for the 2017, 2018 and 19, what will it be? Why are we importing so much coffee when our coffee cannot be so long? And the government must intervene and do some marketing and promotion of the Jamaican culture.
Workers are frustrated and are expecting to receive their final payment as the coffee prices drop significantly from $12,000 to $3,000. This one coffee farmer describes as slavery.
Blue Mountain Coffee I sell locally 40, 50 US in a tourist resort and all boat. Overseas 60 pounds and all the money that you can bring $33,000 for your box of coffee. We have been 10 pounds. One of the pan. Hold on. Wallingford, coffee traders, all the players, I wanna we come out. I wanna we come out to have to do better. I want to take man for a fool.
Another coffee farmer, Orette Bryan, says the decrease is unacceptable.
We need the coffee industry to step up right now. We need them to intervene in this problem. $3,000, no. We said no, no. We need money right now. You understand? No, right now, at this moment. We need at least $10,000. You understand? $10,000 we need because we need money in the industry.
And the industry is calling for Prime Minister Andrew Holness to intervene and for a meeting with Agriculture Minister Audley Shaw.
We want Andrew! We want Andrew!
Coffee farmer Pauline Brown wants Mr. Holness to return the coffee prices to where it was before.
We need Andrew Holness right now. Same as I look the voting and can look for we. That's how we want him now right now. Him right now. For interview right now. When anything with the farmer, then we can't see no Prime Minister. We say we want to see Andrew Holness right now and leeching them what belong to the coffee board. Murder we can't take it no more. We put if we go to school. We put if we go to school. Murder we hungry. Murder we hungry. Murder we hungry. Come right now, leeching right now, Andrew Holness.
And over 200 workers of J. Ray and Nephew have lost their jobs as a result of Wednesday's closure of operations at its Holland estate in Casa Maranatha in St. Elizabeth. This follows a decision the company said was as a result of ongoing economic losses caused by the combined effect of escalating operational costs and the declining cost of sugar. Cordian Barrett has the details.
With the new school year approaching in just a few weeks, some 226 workers formerly employed to the Appleton estate in St. Elizabeth have received job cuts. First Vice President of the University and Allied Workers Union, Clifton Grant, says the cuts will take effect at the end of this month.
The top management in the company went down and they spoke to the workers and they indicated to the workers that it is a tough decision for them to be separating. But the company has to take some business decision in order to make the places more effective and efficient.
Mr. Grant gave details on what prompted Appleton Estate to reduce its workforce.
They are closing their operation at Holland Estate and at Casa Maranatha Farm. And at the factory, approximately 40 workers will also be separated. A total of about 240 workers out of 670 workers will be separated from their job at Appleton.
It's reported that the redundancies are part of a rationalization program at the entity. The 240 Appleton workers who will lose their jobs are slated to receive redundancy packages by the end of September.
The workers will get 14 weeks notice period. That's the arrangement under the collective labor agreement in the industry. And the compensation for years of service, 1 to 10 will be 3 weeks per year of service, and over 10 will be 4 weeks. But in addition to that package, the company is putting up over $100 million towards the additional benefits to the workers, especially in terms of scholarship to the employees, counseling sessions. Next week they are going to have a full day of counseling session where they call in the financial institutions, including pension carriers.
The workers are extremely saddened.
I really feel sad about it, because throughout the year I most get me support from, so I really feel it, but you can't give up. That is on the job, so we have to just keep your faith and go on.
Though seemingly impossible at this point, the workers want the company to be reopened.
Operate a small shop, sell coconut. My clothes dry company now it affect me because I used to have some workers who always come out and support me. And like how they now work now, nothing now go on, everything slow down. So I like the company up in back so things can go on for we. Back to school, nothing now go on, we want to look for help. So they're here a long time, man, over 10 years. My mother did there before. But I carry on the business now. I like the place up in up back, that thing's brighter. Prosperity, they say no, so it we want.
Chairman of J. Ray and Nephew Limited, Clement Lawrence, notes that the production of sugarcane has declined and global purchasers have been able to purchase sugar at far lower prices than Jamaica has been able to support. Jamaica has been grappling with decades of production losses, the most recent being a $1.9 billion loss in 2017.
A new wage deal could soon be in place for workers at the state-run oil refinery Petrojam. Cecily Hamilton gives us the details.
The Union of Clerical, Administrative and Supervisory Employees, UCASE, and the refinery's management are set to sign an agreement this week.
Well, discussions are ensuing. I think we're at a critical stage now, and we expect some positive results early this week. And we have asked our members to bear with us a little while we try and complete the process. But we are at a very critical stage now, and it has been going at a pace that we are not fully comfortable, but we can live with. And we are hopeful that before the week is out, we should be able to put pen to paper.
In the meantime, Mr. Levy says the industrial relations climate at Petrojam has improved since the recent return of Winston Watson as the general manager.
And I want to commend the team down there, and from the management team right down there, from the workers right up to the effort that they have put in to get the plant back in good order. You would have seen a release from the office at the time. The workers are dedicated and committed people, and they must be treated in the same way. And we are expecting, as I say, an early resolution to the wage and fringe benefits arrangement by possibly early this week. So far, under Mr. Watson's leadership, we have not had any hiccups, and we hope to try and keep it that way.
Mr. Watson, who was on secondment to the Petroleum Corporation of Jamaica, returned to Petrojam last month following the resignation of Floyd Grindley amid allegations of corruption and nepotism at the refinery.
Medical Marijuana Jamaica, MMJ, announced on Wednesday that it has filed 2 applications with the United States Federal Drug Administration, FDA, to begin clinical trials aimed at treating symptoms associated with multiple sclerosis and Huntington's disease. MMJ is seeking FDA permission to proceed to undertake a clinical research study to develop a pharmaceutical-grade cannabis-based medicine derived from the natural extracts of the marijuana plant. Details in this report.
According to the company, it expects that both studies will be active by the end of 2018 to provide patients with effective medicine to ease the debilitating effects on the patients. CEO of MMJ, Dwayne Boyes, explains the significance of the applications to start the trials.
We have filed our investigational new drug application early this year, and we've had response from the FDA already. They have asked us to provide some questions as to the quality of our specific formulation. We are treating multiple sclerosis patients that are suffering from primary progressive multiple sclerosis, and we know that the medication stops the spasticity and reduces the level of pain in the patients.
MMJ's lead medical investigators will conduct one of the first ever clinical trials to investigate and prove efficacy of a natural botanical cannabis extract as a treatment for multiple sclerosis and Huntington's disease. But what timeline can the public expect in relation to the availability of the drug?
We are in the process now of applying for Fast Track designation. Fast Track designation will allow us to be 18 to 24 months. Providing the FDA approves it, to the market, 18 to 24 months to market with a prescription pharmaceutical grade of the extracts from the plant.
Mr. Boyes noted that MMJ continues its deliberations with local and U.S. tertiary institutions while identifying patients for the clinical studies.
Well, right now that we're stymied with the lack of development in Jamaica, and I am unable to find anyone that can either grow genetic strain specifics of the plant and be able to perform the drug development steps that are required in extraction according to the FDA. We're hoping that we can solve some of these problems as time evolves, and we're dealing with numerous tertiary institutions both in the United States and in Jamaica to try to figure out the logistics to that.
Multiple sclerosis and Huntington's disease are debilitating neurodegenerative disorders. Although the diseases progress slowly, patients have difficulty moving, suffer from involuntary tremors, and reduced cognitive functioning.
And the possibility is increasing that adjustments could be made to the primary exit profile PEP, which is to replace the grade 6 achievement test GSAT. More from Cody and Barrett.
The results of the recent PEP mock exams will soon become available, and the Education Ministry and the Jamaica's Teachers Association, JTA, have confirmed that more consultations have been scheduled to address concerns. Controversy over the PEP erupted this week after the JTA declared that it should be delayed because teachers were not ready. Education Minister Senator Ruel Reid is adamant that it will proceed. However, he has confirmed that more consultations are being done, which includes the JTA and other stakeholders. One critical element in the process will be the results of the mock exams, which he says should be available by the second week of September.
And we already have taken the reviews to adjust the item. I've given directives, and this is why we're bringing in the teachers and the representatives to the table. So we have to redesign those items so everybody's comfortable that the items are valid items. And I think that is the takeaway. I want to assure the public that the review, we have taken JTA's concern, the teachers' concerns on board, so that the final items that we'll have out there are items that everybody will feel that they are reasonable and fair items.
PEP will be rolled out on a phased basis, beginning next month with students who are now in grade 5 to be the first cohort. And the Education Minister continues to express confidence in the checks and balances that are in place for the implementation of PEP.
I am assuring the public, yourself and the public, that all the necessary safeguards and the preparatory arrangements will be put in place, all the support necessary. And, you know, over the last couple of years, I have guided Dr. Mack and the team to be out there in the field, working with teachers directly, working with students directly, in terms of preparation for every assessment, whether it's external or internal, standardized tests, that we have deployed resources to make sure everybody is properly prepared. We have done so before and will continue to do so for PEP and beyond.
And JTA President Dr. Garth Anderson has shared the areas which will need to be addressed before PEP's implementation this year.
The ministry and indeed the minister indicated that they have taken some steps in terms of ensuring curriculum guides are out there, in terms of sending resources to school. We now have to sit down and look at some of the other issues to ensure that training, we have to develop a proper training plan. And because it cannot be business as usual, radically shift from the position we are now in to ensure that at the end of the day, our children get the best kind of education they can receive from the curriculum.
Despite his open agreement with the implementation timeline, he has indicated his organization's role in the consultation which will take place with the Education Ministry.
Well, the minister and indeed the Ministry of Education have given us an open invitation to come in and have the dialogue and work with them to get it right, and we are prepared to do so because, as I said, we are in it together. Because this is education, and we're talking about our young people, and we're talking about our country, the growth and development of our country.
In the meantime, Prime Minister Andrew Holness is again encouraging Jamaicans to embrace and not fear the new primary exit profile, which will replace the Grade 6 Achievement Test GSAT as the National Secondary School Placement Examination. PEP, which students will sit for the first time in the upcoming 2018-2019 academic year, is intended to provide an improved and more complete profile of students' academic and critical thinking capabilities at the end of primary level education. Holness pointed out, however, that the exam will take teachers out of their comfort zones because they will now be tasked with inspiring students to come up with their own solutions.
We take a break. News Rewind will be right back with the top business stories.
The NSW
in Jamaica, President Donald Trump's
waste reduction.
Marcus Happening.
Welcome back to News Rewind. Now for the top business stories of the past week. Following complaints that regulations imposed by the Jamaica Agricultural Commodities Regulatory Authorities, JACRA, are too burdensome, Agriculture Minister Audie Shaw has promised to revisit those policies. More in this report.
Mr. Hutchinson disclosed that the planning of the castor bean will begin in earnest by the end of this year, as Jamaica seeks to tap into the multi-billion-dollar industry. The product is used primarily in the pharmaceutical industry as an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory in cosmetic applications and in the manufacture of high-grade lubricants, as well as biodiesel fuel. Mr. Hutchinson says interest has already been expressed by an international investor in establishing a bamboo processing facility in Jamaica, and pointing to the variety of bamboo-derived products, Mr. Hutchinson said the government is taking steps to develop the industry. He said a committee has been formed with the purpose of examining the tenets of establishing the sector. He said the aim is to formalize the growing of bamboo. The committee will collaborate with stakeholders to speed up the establishment of the bamboo industry by next year.
There's no need to worry about the depreciation of the Jamaican dollar against the U.S. currency. That's the word from the central bank again to the public. The details in this report from Kimberly Broderick.
Speaking on TVJ Smile Jamaica on Monday, Deputy Governor for the Research and Economic Programming Division at the Bank of Jamaica, Wayne Robinson, said at the moment the BOJ is not concerned about the exchange rate. He said the BOJ is monitoring the issue and will decide whether to take action.
When we will become concerned, it's two factors, under two conditions. One, when we begin to see that the rate of movement is going to be having such an impact on inflation.
When you say rate of movement?
In the exchange rate.
Okay.
In the exchange rate, to such an extent that is really going to impact inflation in a way that we would not desire. Then we'll start to act. Also, if we see a situation where the foreign exchange market itself stops functioning, so you want to get US dollars, you go to your bank and your bank is telling you, oh, there's no US dollars. That is when we'll start to act.
He added that the exchange rate is no longer the main factor in the price of goods and services.
What we do as policymakers is to look at prices on average. So the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, every month, they survey over 500 prices right across the country, from Moran Point to Negril Point. And they compile an average price in the economy. And that is what we look at as policymakers. That's what we try to influence, the rate at which that average price is. So you could have some prices going up higher than the average, and you'll have prices going down below the average as well.
On Monday, the Jamaican dollar has sunk to a new low against the U.S. currency. The greenback is now being sold for an average $137.45. Since the start of the year, the Jamaican dollar has devalued by about 9%.
And that's your News Rewind for this week. I'm Shane Masters. Thanks for watching.